because this is such an unusual forum, I thought I would use a medical profession which I admire for the high standards, ethical standards, when it comes to cooperation and ethical principles of serving. And they have diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment. So the diagnosis about what's happening on the Israeli side, what it will be talking about the problems of academic freedom and cooperation on the Palestinian side, I think I'm going to be very short on the diagnosis because we all know it so well. I will be even shorter on the prognosis, what can be the forecasting for the near future if things are going the same way, or the same wrong way, to put it this way. But mostly focus on treatment. I mean, what can be done, which I think that's where most people are very concerned that we don't really know if there is a way out. Guy expressed it even more so that maybe academic cooperation is not feasible. People have to do things as a citizen, as a concerned citizen, and so on. But just on the diagnosis, a couple of things. One thing that got us to start this project, and by the way, I just want to pay tribute to the Norwegians that are very stubborn in trying to help us build something together. Because when the Oslo Treaty was, Oslo Accords were approved, the Norwegians insisted to have an item called people to people, and then donated every year $1 million for people to people to make it widespread. They say $20,000 a project, namely 50 projects a year, 50 projects a year for about 10 years. They were giving us money. There were also NGOs, a lot of NGOs. Also, many universities were involved in these $20,000 units of projects. So I'm telling you that because the Norwegians are now funding this exploratory effort to see if there is a way to provide some treatment to the very difficult diagnosis of the situation. So for the diagnosis, one concern was the question, how comes when in many countries, academics and students have been at the forefront of fighting for human rights and democracy. Is there any problem about fighting for peace that makes it more difficult? And the one thing that comes to our mind is when you fight for human rights and democracy, you normally fight your own regime, a regime that restricts freedoms, and that's where they feel together. But when it comes to make peace with the other, maybe ethno-nationalism or identity prevails and makes it very difficult for the two sides, even if they adhere to the idea of a peaceful resolution, two states, etc., but the idea to work together across the divide becomes very difficult. We are not going to suggest a project, but that could be an interesting project if we adhere, Palestinians and Israelis, to human rights, democracy, and peace. Many of us, maybe even most of us. How comes we cannot work together because of the ethno-political, I would say, patriotism or nationalism, whatever we want to call it. So that work, that's one of the things that we are concerned with, trying to find a diagnosis on that. I'm not very sure it's very clear, and perhaps there is. The other thing that we worry is the question of social responsibility. Social responsibility, and Gaia mentioned that, in fact, that being the most educated sector of our society, being trained to teach on the one hand, and on the other hand, as we know, how comes we are not taking a leading role in giving back to society what they deserve? And as we have checked already in previous, there's a lot of writing, I should say, about our exploration for more than 10 years now of this issue, including 2 books that we co-edited, and there are many articles in different, especially with Walid. So what I wanted to say is that when it comes to the question of social responsibility, in the Israeli academia, I'm talking about the diagnosis in the Israeli academia, very often you hear saying, look, as a citizen, I'm committed to do whatever is needed. I will go to a demonstration, some petitions, be active in political parties or in NGOs for peace, but my academic professional role cannot be involved with politics without trying to see if there is something that can connect between the social responsibility of academics, especially at times of violent conflict. And that's where we think is requires a lot of discussion and explanation that we cannot separate, as the physicians cannot separate their ethical commitment. We have an ethical commitment for a social responsibility for these kind of universal values. We're not necessarily giving an answer about the border here or there, but the idea that equality of rights, this kind of thing, we can find a formula, we should find a formula that will be the prelude to any cooperation now. We did try in the past, and there are some brochures here in English and in Hebrew, in 2005, where we did try to say, look, the fact is that we can close with social responsibility a Palestinian university, Palestinians cannot close an Israeli university. But the distance between Jerusalem and Bethlehem is shorter than the distance between Bethlehem and Jerusalem. That we can invite Chomsky, and they cannot invite Chomsky. That our students can study anywhere they want, and the students in Gaza cannot study, and I can go on and on. And then we can say, well, let the politicians deal with that, because we are into our academic, and we cannot be bothered. We will challenge that, and I think that we have a good chance, if we find an agreement with the Palestinians. They also have their social responsibility, and Waleed will talk about it in a moment. But from our perspective, I would say, and we now take academic freedom as the yardstick. Check the definitions of academic freedom. Our friend Scott will help us. I can only tell you the International Association of University, International Association of University, has a wonderful definition of academic freedom that includes social responsibility. All Israeli universities are members, all Palestinian universities are members. Maybe unknowingly, they have agreed to the fact that there is social responsibility. Of course, they never ask themselves, what does it mean to me in a conflict situation? They was like, joining an organization. Maybe they didn't read the powers to be, what is the 1.5-page Declaration of Academic Freedom of the International Association. So we are now saying, one problem we have in Israeli academia is that they separate professional work from what is called political work without understanding that there is an ethical commitment that we sign, same way that the physicians have an ethical commitment, we also have an ethical commitment. So how can we make this a yardstick for cooperation? The second thing is, obviously, especially the young faculty, this question of publish or perish, some of us are closer to perish than to publish. I don't want to be pessimistic speaking about pessimism and optimism, but physically we all are closer now. You have obtained very high academic degrees. I don't know that the publishing is going to make you any higher, but the perishing is getting closer. So we have this feel of urgency, right, that I detect also by myself. And the question is, the training to be a Western university is basically excellency, is basically connect yourself to the best universities for a sabbatical, for a publication, etc. So why should you waste time connecting with a university that is not flourishing, among other things, because of occupation? Among other things. He will tell you a list of 10 things that are problematic for academic freedom. But we cannot ignore that our contribution to the limit of the development of Palestinian universities is extremely serious. So we tell Israeli young academics, what about publishing with Palestinians? Why only, the Ivy League? No social responsibility. And furthermore, they say, I don't have a problem to publish with the Palestinian. I publish Canadian and Italian. So what doesn't make a difference? I can, without understanding that when we work with the Canadian, we work on conditions of equality. And when we work with the Palestinian, we do not work on conditions of equality. There is an asymmetry, and we are social responsibility responsible for that asymmetry. So if you want to work with the Palestinian academic, you have to do 2 steps. Not only one, but the other one is to understand that occupied and occupier generates an asymmetry, and our social responsibility say, yes, we want to work also with Palestinian academics, no question about it, but we understand we have to do 2 steps because of the asymmetry. I'm only formulating things that if we ever find a way to cooperate again, I personally think we'll have to be very clear-cut and say that very clearly to any academic. Maybe there will be a minority of Israeli academics that will say, we work together, we want to work in equality as we work with anybody else. We cannot work with equality because occupation is generating a situation of facility. Maybe 10% of academia will be able to say it on a formulation. That's what we can consider. But not to say there is no social responsibility. That, I think, is something that will make it nearly impossible for the Palestinian academics today to say cooperation is not collaboration. Because the word collaboration that we use so easily as a synonym is not a synonym. It's not a synonym, obviously. In other ears, in my ear, I will abuse it, but obviously I have to be sensitive to the ears of the others. So all these are this is part of the diagnosis. I just wanted to say these are most academics are probably on the liberal side. I mean, that's the assumption. But the separation between profession and politics. And the question of saying, I have to, my career, publish or perish, I believe, so I have no time for bon pour l'Orient. I remember one of my colleagues saying, bon pour l'Orient. You know what it means? Good for the Orient. Not, we need to work with the university that's better than good for the Orient. And so on. And then finally, just let me move quickly to the there is another thing I want to quote. Salim Tamari was part of our team originally and no longer now. Obviously, the things have changed. He said the Israeli academics are living in insularity. Insularity means the ivory tower. We pretend to be in the Western world as any other university in the Western world, ignoring what's happening. When I was at the Truman Institute, my closest reference were Palestinian universities. I mean, there are no other Israeli university closer than two Palestinian universities, and yet the orientation was not, to the Orient, as we would say. So this question of insularity, and I think the best person that put it in the clearest way was Stanley Cohen. He's no longer with us, unfortunately, a criminologist. When he wrote a couple of things, a book and so on, and he mentioned the term, the problem with Israeli academia is acknowledgement. You say acknowledgement, what does it mean? He separated the act and knowledgement. And he said, act upon knowledge. We all, most of us read our newspaper. That should be enough for us to have knowledge, let alone all the other things we know from so many other sources about the situation. But what we miss is the internalizing from knowledge into action. That's why the word acknowledgement for Stanley Cohen was such an important word. That we don't think, I say social responsibility, I know some of you do, and I don't want to individualize, but as a collective, as a community, the Israeli academia basically do not acknowledge. That's why we need to work on this kind of concept and see if there is a chance. The prognosis is bleak. I think it's going to get worse. I can tell you, for this project, we understood we need to have a third party to get a wider access because of the situation that is impossible to have bilateral projects, I just mentioned. Trilateral, but the way out, which is trilateral, is becoming increasingly difficult because of BDS. Because like we are trying to approach Norwegian academics, basically there is a reluctance. And we've been through all kinds of friends and connections and so on. They feel, some of them, not only more solidarity with the Palestinian side, which is also true, but they also, speaking about Europeans in general maybe, they also feel that they are circumventing the BDS, or they are told by the BDS people, we are trying to boycott, and you go around and you legitimate Israeli and Palestinian working because you give us the umbrella, just give us the umbrella to continue to work together, and we are for BDS. So my projection is it's going to be more difficult. And some of you know it about journals and so on. And it's okay for Moti to say that it's unfair to boycott, but I'm only and I'm against total boycotts. I'm for targeted boycotts, as many of you boycott produce and so on, and policies. I don't want to boycott the freedom of expression, never, including people that is against my values and so on. So that's why we think we should open up this channel, which is a channel based on academic freedom. That's the only channel that we can open. So I'm going now quickly into the treatment, which is the third part. As we do need a paradigm shift. We need a paradigm shift as when people are in a crisis situation. We are in a crisis situation, obviously. And the paradigm shift says we have to call a spade a spade. We have social responsibility. It may not appeal to all the academia, it may not appeal even to universities that are also boycotted as such, but although we are the time, there was a time where presidents of, I remember rectors of university meeting with Palestinian rectors of university in Egypt, in Alexandria. Would you believe it? You know, there were times where it was that high. Or President Makidor taking Zion Seba to London to stand up against the boycott. What else can we imagine? You know, that much effect. Well, now we have to go into individual academics. I don't think that the universities as a university, with the government we have in Israel, were there to say what individual academics can say. What many of us have been saying it as citizens can be coined within the umbrella of academic freedom. As I say, there are two elements in academic freedom that are clearly related to say, clearly occupied and occupier who want to work together anywhere in the world, except that we are the only one. But anywhere in the world, they have to be at the same level. That is a condition for international cooperation with any other country has to be done in terms of equality. As long as there is no equality, our work with Palestinian academics, I'm speaking about the Israelis, has to be conditional also to our commitment to work against ending the inequality, equal ending occupation. In 2005, we had a code of ethics that it did not use the term occupation. It was like, but I'm now hearing, and only here and maybe others around the table speaking about apartheid, you know. So things are changing. I mean, speaking about the prognosis, you use this wonderful article of yours about apartheid, right? Incredible, wonderful letter, you know, very moving letter. And this is where we are moving. So we are now saying we cannot avoid, but be very clear. Only those academics who want to work, could be natural sciences, it could be any field. They will do their best professionally, but also as concerned academics. Academics, because of social responsibility, to say very clearly, we are committed to work towards the end of this asymmetry. If we will say that, I think with BDS it will be extremely difficult to convince the hardcore of BDS. Why? Because it's easier for them, when we will talk about it, to speak about black and white. When we are talking about selected, targeting boycott, selected boycott, it's more difficult to explain than, you know, boycott yes or no. We can open perhaps a little window for a plausible, you know, I'm going to say blank check and plausible denial. Okay, these few academics, Palestinian academics that would like to work with Israeli academics, we are not going to oppose because the Israeli academics are very clear-cut on their position as academics and so on. That's basically where we need your feedback, if it's feasible, if it's logic. And we are hoping that after we had a meeting in Jerusalem, a very good meeting, we had a meeting in Haifa, and now they will tell you about the meetings on the Palestinian side. And at the end of June, we'd like to have a meeting with some 10 Israeli and 10 Palestinian academics to see if we can come up with a formulation that will be like the basis for any legitimate cooperation based on the principle of academic freedom. That's what we are talking about. So I stop and then...
Thank you, Dee, and thanks for following comply with my orders at this time. I'm sorry. Sorry for the words. But in any way, to start with, in this project, what we are trying to do in this project, and what is the justification? what we are trying to do, Idi and I started working with this since 2004. And at that time, when we started 2004, already 10 years, we started discussing the issue of academic cooperation. Academic cooperation across the divide between Israel and Palestine. Then in the last 2 years, we decided to move from academic cooperation to academic freedom in Israel and Palestine. And I will tell you why we did it from one to one. Because this has to do with your expectations. We spoke about academic cooperation, which I will say in a minute why it is not for my surprise to get that from the Israelis. When I go to talk to Israeli friends, why the expectation is about academic cooperation, not about something, for instance, academic freedom. Academic freedom. In any way, the idea became academic freedom with three objectives that we wanted to do, that we had in mind. One objective, promoting academic freedom in Palestine as important component for building Palestinian democratic state. So we are preparing for the establishment of Palestinian democratic state by establishing freedom and democracy inside the universities. And here you know also, because you know the Middle East, we have the issues of democracy and Islam, we have Islamic orientations, we have the idea of, we have Islamic ideas that also prevent academic freedom. You are also supposed to discuss as an academic certain issues, or you are not supposed, you are not allowed to discuss others. I just was showing Galia before we started, just noting about a school called Al-Mustaqbal in Ramallah, which is dismissed a teacher from the school because she taught the students about Darwin, which is Darwin is against Islam, so she was just dismissed from the school. Musa al-Buderi, well-known Palestinian academic a few years ago, in Birzeit University, put a statement in the door of his office about women's rights. Hizb al-Tahrir al-Islami, the Islamic Liberation Party, made a statement against him in the university. Therefore, he was, and the university stood with the Hizb al-Tahrir against him. So this was the situation. So in our society, we have problems that has to do with the prevailing culture, with also the Islamic orientations, which limits the freedom of academic research. So in our first objective, we want to deal with this. The second objective that we wanted to deal with is academic freedom in Israel. And of course, in your country, it does not refer to that. You have also restrictions. So Artsenu, following chasing Israeli academics, NGOs monitor chasing academics and non-academics, cooperating with the other side. And we know what happened with Ilan Pape and with David, with our friend in University, David Newman. We know what happened with David Newman, we know what happened with Menachem Klein, we know what happened with Ilan Pape, and we know other stories about, and we know what happened with Katz, who made the research about Tantura, and then what the attacks were, and you know what these stories. So this is the second objective. The third objective, how can we work together in order to promote academic freedom on both sides? Because also academic freedom, as it was mentioned also in the workshop that we had in University, the restrictions on academic freedom in both societies has to do not only with internal restrictions. There are restrictions on academic freedom that has to do with our relations together. Therefore, preventing the students from Gaza to come West Bank, preventing the Palestinians from West Bank to go to study in Gaza universities, preventing Gaza to study in Israeli universities. This has to do with occupation. And these are restrictions on academic freedom caused by occupation. At the same time, what happened with Katz, what happened with Ilan Pape, what happened with Menachem Klein and David Newman has to do also with occupation, because they're positions. So they pay the cost. So academic freedom of both societies is restricted by internal restrictions on one hand and by occupation on the second. So these are the kinds of issues that we want actually, we thought to work at to promote academic freedom in both societies and across the divide, including the internal restrictions in both societies and the restrictions coming from occupation at the same time. It is with this sense, it is ambitious, but this is what we are trying to do, to put it in the frame. Now, Eddie and Galia refer to the issue of knowledge production and practice. Of course, I learned from you here in the room, many of you, I know 13 from out of 18 sitting around the table. Yeah? So, and I think you know a lot about the relationship between academic as a producer of knowledge and academic as practitioner of it. Also, Dan Jacobson referred to that in addition to Gali and Eddie. This is an issue. And this is an issue that has, I would say, 3 or 4 components. The first one is the academic as a good citizen. This is one thing, but it has to do with the citizenship. So why I should be just an academic and also want to be also a good citizen at the same time. This is one thing. But more important than that is the other 2 components, which is my responsibility and the future of the humanity. We are doing research in order to make the life of people better. Now, if we do research in order to make the life of the people better, then why Professor Munir Fasha, please Google him, you'll find that by internet. It is there, about الإمبريالية الثقافية, cultural imperialism. He has it in English. He said, why in first hand we have very good universities, Harvard, Cambridge, and etc., while at the same time, the fact of the life of the population growth is becoming worse. So, what is academic research is producing to make the life of the humanity better. So when we talk about social responsibility, we have not to take it to make it abstract. Do we have social responsibility or not? It's the essence of research. Is we are doing research in order to contribute to making the life of the humanity better. So why Cambridge is becoming the highest and very luxurious universities, why the life of the people in the world is becoming worse. This is the main question, and this is what he called that there is some kind of imposition of agenda, which prevented academia to develop in a way that will be able to meet, the issue of solving the humanity problems. I am just coming from Moscow last April, where I attended the conference 25th and 26th of April, organized by 4 universities. Yeah. The conference was allocated to the issue about the role of academics towards the humanity, about the future of the world. What is the role of academics about the future of the world? We talked about everything: terrorism, piracy, crossing border terrorism, drugs, human trafficking, internal rifts in societies like Darfur, whatever, and all the problems that are facing the globe today, the global warming, and all of the kinds of these problems. So the discussion was about what is the role of the academia towards these problems that the world is facing. So I think, and here I am coming to the third component of the role of the academia, which has to do with your role towards the problem that you are facing in your region as an academic, in the region that you live with. Not only the globe, but the region that you live with. In our case, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And with this, in this regard, will come the issue of what kind of research, what is the research agenda. Therefore, before we talk about collaboration, we need to see what is the research agenda that meets with the people who want to cooperate with each other across the divide. And here I come to us. What we do, instead of starting with the research agenda, we start with the following, and it mostly happens from the Israeli side. I am, as an Israeli academic, I have the following project, and I am looking for a Palestinian partner. But prior to that, we have to ask us the questions that is before that. Does this project, this academic research, meets with their priorities? meets with their research agenda, you know, and this is the reason why the BDS people are right on this. Jump on this. The BDS is not about the Palestinian guys are the bad guys. Bad guys. We are the Israelis, we are nice. We are nice Israeli academics from this camp. We want to cooperate to them, and they are the guilty people. They are boycotting us. The story should not be taken in that way because it's also individualistic, taking it in that person. We are thinking, why they reject me? I am Danny Bartal, sorry to mention your name, Danny. I am Danny Bartal, the nice, against occupation, etc. Why they are rejecting, you know, cooperating with me? It should not be taken in that way because it's not at all in this sense. It is about, you know, first of all, deciding the agenda. If you want to create symmetrical relationship, we need to start thinking about the research agenda together that meet with the challenges. We need to define together what is the research agenda that we need in order to deal with the challenges. Like the people in Moscow conference were thinking, what is the agenda for a global research that will meet with, that will lead to the creation of research that will lead to the dealing with the global challenges. We need together to define what is the local challenges that we have in Israel and Palestine across the divide, the interim and the long-term ones, define them clearly, and based on defining the agenda, we define what research and who will do what. We are not there. Instead of having this, we have selective process of cooperation in doing research together, where always, as I said, mostly an Israeli will come with project, and Palestinians, then we have to find the Palestinian, you know, who will cooperate with him. So this is what's going on. Now, this leads me to the position of the Palestinian, positions of the Palestinian academia about this issue of academic cooperation across the world. Starting with the BDS. The BDS group, according to research made by very good starting research lab done by two students of Eddie Kaufman that with your permission we can send it to the group later on. The BDS major idea is the following, that in Israel you have either academics who are serving the institution, the Israeli institution, by all its components, the political and the military, and there are a minority in the Israeli academia who are ready to cooperate. But those who are ready to cooperate, they select what they want to cooperate with. Therefore, they are not yet supportive to the Palestinian right of self-determination fully. They select partial issues. I select to work with the Palestinians on the issue of the human rights during occupation, for instance. But when I do so, when I do so, and I have a Palestinian partner who will work with me on this, this is still in the framework of making the occupation benevolent. Because when I improve the human rights, I am improving the human rights within the framework of occupation. So mostly you select projects that to cooperate with Palestinians that at the end lead to making the occupation better, more than getting rid of it. So the idea, when we are talking about the social, again, when we are talking about the academic cooperation agenda, where we should start? Should we start from projects that has to do with making the current situation better, or it has to do with how to transform the current situation towards independence? This is a main issue in the agenda, which is the therefore, back to the BDS, they say since we have these two Israeli groupings, the ones who are working with the establishment, the Israeli state establishment, and the others who are cooperating with me, wanted to cooperate with me as Palestinian in selective issues that they decide without consulting with me, which is more about making the occupation benevolent, more than transforming the situation. Therefore, I do not want to cooperate with Israeli institutions. Yeah? Israeli institutions. If I want to cooperate, I can cooperate with Israeli individuals, with Israeli academic individuals who I can develop with them a joint agenda. So this is the framework of the BDS. Of course, there is just a small footnote here. Among the BDS people, you'll find people that even boycott individuals, because individuals like Omar and Barghouti, they will know name, while others from the BDS, they say, no, we can meet with individuals. So you have this position among the Palestinians, which is the BDS, which we have to understand it not only as from a reactionary anger position. They have their rationale. Their rationale is clear. The Israeli society is either against us or select what they want to cooperate with us. And this is the kind of ideas that is there. And at the same time, the third component, their idea, is that boycott, divestment, and sanction is non-violence against occupation. And therefore, Israel has to select either to reject Palestinian non-violence or to reject Palestinian violence. But Israel cannot reject both. It is the right for the Palestinians to have non-violent action against occupation. This is what the BDS people say, and this should be a respected position because they don't believe in violence, they believe in non-violence action, including the sanctions and divestment. So this is about the BDS. The other group of people think along the line of the Palestinian National Council Palestinian National Council resolution in 1974, 12th Conference of the PLO, which spoke at that time in 1974, spoke about the necessity to cooperate with the Israeli groups who support the Palestinian people's right for self-determination and security. So there are people who are working along this line. Therefore, they do not go in the line of BDS, but they go in the line of working together in a clear-cut agenda, which is for the two-state solutions. When you do that as academics, you develop the kind of research that will make this two-state solution becoming possibility, becoming to get to it faster. So this is the idea that is. So this is actually what is there in Palestine. But actually, through the discussion, I would like to have your feedback about this dichotomy between knowledge production and knowledge practice. And this dichotomy also between objectivity and neutrality. Objectivity and neutrality are the same words. To be objective, am I neutral? Am I neutral? Let me even say more words than that. When I go to participate in conferences like the one in Moscow and European states, I do not find this, I find it, for them, the academics in European states, for them it's obvious that as an academic, I should be a good citizen, and I should, develop applied research that will help the development of the humanity and so on. But at the same time, when I come to Israel and Palestine, and I find it among the academics, Palestinian academics, and Israeli lessons, we are academics. We should do only neutral work. We should go to the room and educate very well. This is our role. We should not be involved in politics. We should not even develop some kind of political research. You find this position. Now, what I learned from our experience, when I try to unmask this position of I am neutral, I do not go to politics, I should keep myself, separate politics. When I mask it, I find behind it that those who say that want to keep to themselves some kind of freedom to cooperate with the establishment. So the words, I am neutral, I am objective. But the practice is serving the establishment. So we see talking about the neutrality and objectivity, but at the same time, in the practice you see some kind of serving the establishment. So in other words, this position, I am objective and neutral, at the end is not neutral. It is biased. It is biased to the establishment against being biased to the human ethics.
human global ethics, which we should be abiding with. And the issue is not occupation, the issue is human values. If I believe in human values, and human values embedded in my academic work, then I am conducive to be able to not to have this kind of contradiction between neutrality and objectivity, and between academic knowledge production and academic practice. So this is the kind of things that I wanted actually to present to the discussion. For now, let me finish with one small point that has to do with Israel-Palestine. We have in Palestine and Israel, we have also the following asymmetry between the academia. By the way, we have asymmetry between the two societies. But in the academia, the Palestinian academics are not less capable than the Israeli ones. There are very good, well-known Palestinian scholars who produce to knowledge. Galia mentioned the woman center, but this is one of the best actually in the Middle East, I would say, not only in the Institute. So there is no asymmetry between academics. There are very good Palestinian academics, well-based, knowledgeable, and produce very good knowledge. So the asymmetry is not between the academics, it's the asymmetry between occupied and occupied. So this is the asymmetry that we're talking about. But at the same time, there is another asymmetry between the expectations of academics in both societies and what they do at the same time. If you go to Palestine, majority of Palestinian academics are focusing on the Palestinian internal issues. At the same time, opening up to cooperation with international academics. For instance, a few days from today, there will be a big conference in Hebron University, that I will be participating in, about the role of academics in promoting democracy and civil society, with international academics doing good. Yeshiva University hold a lot of conferences with international participants. There are a lot of joint academic projects between Palestinian academics and international ones. But at the same time, that they are open to the world, they are not open to the Israeli police. There are less and less Israeli-Palestinian joint academic projects. And this is because maybe what I mentioned, the problem of the agenda, and the disappointment, because the agenda is not understood, and what's going on is more that let us get to business together, more than what values we share, and based on what values we share, we develop the joint project. So this is the Palestinian side. In the Israeli side, what I witnessed, and correct me if I am wrong, I know a lot of Israeli friends who are experts on India, Sri Lanka, David, what's his name? David Shulman, my person. But he's a committed person. The example is wrong. David Shulman is expert about Sri Lanka, for instance. You ask somebody else to tell you, I'm expert about India. So you have Israeli experts about different countries in the globe, and they go and do research about it. At the same time, we don't have this sense of doing, as Eddie mentioned it, of doing, joint research with Palestinians about how to overcome occupation, how to make the process faster, getting us there to symmetry with the people. So there are different situations. So it's not actually different. It is the same. They have the same. The Israeli and Palestinian academics are almost the same. They prefer to cooperate with the world more than cooperating with each other. This is the situation that is there. So this is actually what is there. This is what I wanted to say for now, and I am looking to hear more about your feedback.
Just one little thing. Put up, you and Eddie both have a lot of points to discuss. I just want to say one funny thing about what you're saying about the BDS. Another argument that they pose is that the Israeli universities are involved in the occupation. That's another justification. And I was thinking of it earlier, is that this is something that needs to be looked at. It's direct and sometimes indirect as well. But that's still another issue.
We also have prepared to our friend Scott a list of references to social responsibility in all kinds of documents of regional and international governments of universities. I think because of time, we may skip it now, but we are preparing a document just to know in which world do we live. And this question of social responsibility is coming up a lot, and especially in areas of conflict. Okay. Why don't we open up some feedback? Just to be very practical, we are looking for a number of you to come to help us in a one-day meeting, a long meeting, 23rd or 26th of June with Palestinians, to have a draft formulation of the kind of sentence that will explain what is the way that Israeli and Palestinian academics can cooperate, based on academics. That's what we need. We also have a website now that has been prepared where people who are adhering to this kind of formulation have research projects on both sides. They can put it there, and then they can find a partner. But the precondition is to be very clear that that's what they adhere to. And also, we are also trying to get more visas for Palestinian academics who want to work with Israeli academics to come to Israel if needed. Something that we neglected very often, except the NGO community is doing it so permanently by the universities. It's like, okay, well, Palestinians cannot come, so they can't work. We want to take social responsibility about the freedom to. So this is what we are doing now. Please.
I have a question, Eddie and Walid, which, without stating my opinion, but I'm sure that you have given some thought to the paradox which we, at least in Israel, are facing. Academia is presently, I'm speaking in general terms, fighting a rearguard battle in Israeli public opinion. It's almost a losing battle. And we are faced with what you are offering. While I certainly agree with 99% of what you said ideologically and morally and so on and so forth, but in practical terms, you are treading on a very thin line between what you propose in general terms and the risk of losing whatever is left of whatever is left of the potential impact academia may have on the Israeli public opinion. So you didn't say that, but if you are suspected of politicizing academia, and you didn't use this term, but this is how it may be interpreted, and not just interpreted, but also receive great public support, because the general mood is anti-academia in Israel today, anti-rationality, anti-academia, whatever, and we are treading on a very thin line here. So I wonder if you have given thought to this schizophrenia almost. I mean, one can be very much in favor of social responsibility, which is a very universal term. I would be much more concrete, perhaps. But even that, trying to mobilize academia one way or the other, in the way you suggested, but at the very same time, lose whatever credibility you still have in Israeli public opinion. And I'm not sure that in that respect we are symmetrical with the Palestinians again. So that's a question.
Let me answer because it came up a couple of times. And I would say it's a real issue. It's not that it's an easy answer. But because BDS, in its totality, is not only boycotting institutions and policies, but also boycotting dialogue, we may be seen as fighting a fanatic BDS, and at the same time adhering to the idea that targeted boycotts are legitimate. And I don't know that that will solve the entire problem. We are patriotic, in inverted commas, by fighting against a blunt boycott that is ignoring the plurality of what Israel can offer. Or if we will be criticized by the establishment that will use it against this group of academics, I still, at times, am invited by the Israeli embassy to speak, and I speak my mind, and they say, look how beautiful Israel democracy is. This professor is speaking his mind, and I'm introducing it. We call it cut your losses. I mean, the loss is total BDS. Now, if you don't want total BDS, you have to accept us. We do it for a matter of principle. We do, I don't know, for the, with this very emotional government, not very rational about, I would say, let's agree to disagree. I would say, let's agree to disagree. If you want to have a total boycott, okay, I heard it from friends, there's nothing we can do. Let the international community boycott us and finito, because it's a lost battle. I don't want to name, but I know some of my best friends even here. But also, one who is not here, which, I think I should mention it because Arnolia, who was the Director General of the Foreign Ministry, who has been, ambassador to South Africa, and what else? He's now saying, only outside pressure, he's saying. So it's not that, it's not an anti-Zionist, whatever, he's saying that. And we are saying, as concerned Israelis, in our benefit, we want to work with Palestinians. We do, but we need the Palestinians, the Israelis to understand. We are opening a ray of hope. You know what the problem is when the government says there is no partner? I tell the Palestinians, you are helping the Israeli government to show that there is no partner. Because if we don't have partners, and around this table, we don't have partners, so that's a real problem. I get very worried. It's a negation of Israel, so it's a check and balances, and it's a question is how to package it. And maybe you are right, maybe the cost is higher than the benefit. But, by the way, all what we are saying remains to be seen, because BDS is so strong that may not even see this little opening as agreed to this. We are telling governments or two official though, it's for your benefit to agree to disagree. I mean, that's what we're saying.
Well, I want to say something about asymmetricity. Well, in my analysis of our conflict and other conflict, in such conflict, power is a dialectical concept. You've got some weakness in power, and power. And I maintain, I don't give the whole lecture, that in our conflict with the Palestinians, ultimately we are the weaker part. But if you concentrate on the academia, certainly the Israeli academy is not in a strong position, but are in a weak position, especially viewing the BDS, etc. And we want collaboration with you more than you want collaboration with us. So I think the whole thing trying to mobilize the Israeli academia explicitly against occupation is really cutting the little impact that they may have. Because they primarily, I think, the Israeli academia should operate vis-à-vis their own society. And adopting such position that we are there in order to end occupation, we are. But if we take it as an academic political project, I mean, the same academics have got nothing to say to their own society. So it's very complex. As a result, in addition, I would say, basically, I think academics should fight with their own society, because if you politicize academia, you'll find it very difficult to treat it once you achieve your political goals. And if you want academic freedom, you must detach it a little bit from your political goals or from your political constraints. That's my...
How?
By collaborating. Cooperate. I mean, what do you want? Do you want, for example, a geneticist to collaborate on how to end occupation?
That would be a commitment overall. It's about them.
I think it's wrong. And it's not going to further the goals that you want.
I'd like to make a couple of points on this.
Happy, raise your voice.
Having sounds well. First of all, I must admit that I disagree with the definition according to which the purpose of academia, academic research, is to improve the life of people. This is, of course, a solemn and great goal, but I'm very conservative in the sense that I believe that the purpose of research or scientific research is to try to find as much as possible the truth. And this hopefully might lead you to achieve other goals, such as the goals that we are talking about. Because once you define the purpose of research in other ways rather than finding the truth, a lot of risks are involved. For example, you can believe in certain ideology and put the ideology as guidance to your scientific research. And it's enough to think of the Stalinistic era where the communist ideology dictated the kind of research that you are doing, and we know how disastrous this was. So first of all, I also don't think that we have any advantage over ordinary citizens except because of our skills, knowledge, and commitment to do research, and the best research that we can do. Otherwise, I think not only we may violate or distort our goals, but I think we may really mislead others as well as ourselves. So that's one point. Second, I'm looking at the composition of this table, the people who are sitting on this table, and without using any questionnaire or any other tool of measurement, I think you will agree with me that these groups, in addition most of them, most of us are probably academics here. We are also, at least for the Israelis, talking about the Israeli, of secular and of Ashkenazi origin. As I said, most of them. And we know that this is not coincidence. If you look, into the peace index that I've been doing, now for over 20 years with Tamar Herman, it is one of the most consistent findings is that the peace group, so to speak, consists of these three major categories: highly educated, Ashkenazi, secular, and also economically well-to-do. I'm not necessarily saying very rich, but well-to-do. Which means that we represent a very small minority in the Israeli public, at least in the Israeli Jewish public. Now, if we want, and I really believe that if we want to achieve the goals that you are talking, and I want to make clear that now I'm making this separation between my role as a scientist and my personal belief. I'm for fully independent Palestinian state with Israeli borders. I'm for the evacuation not only of the isolated settlements, but of all the settlements, all the things, and I think that it is in the final analysis it is good for Israel and will be good for the Palestinians. But saying all this, I'm now using my scientific knowledge, social scientific knowledge. Some of us would say that there is no such thing as social science, but that's a different issue.
Not in this room.
Science and social science.
All together, and we must find, how can we overcome. And here we are coming back and back again, that it's almost like a vicious circle, that in all the meetings, or in most meetings, we find always the old faces, except for those that remain young always, like Galia, who always remain in the early 20s.
How wrong you are.
late 20s, etc. And the problem is that you mentioned. I'll just take you one point. You mentioned the Norwegian people, etc. Now, in 2006, I organized using Norwegian money. Using Norwegian money is a very good way to survive and to do research and also sometimes to improve your own personal income. But that's a different story. And these were two parallel projects. One conducted in Palestine. It was headed by a professor from Birzeit, a woman, I forgot her name. Galia, do you remember her name? From Birzeit.
Which field? Which field was it?
Social sciences. Anyhow, and I was in charge of organizing this work, this project in Israel. And the idea was to take groups to represent a cross-section of people to people. And we really covered a wide array of these people, starting with those that were explicitly interested or their goals or official goals or both official and latent goal was to advance peace, like Peace Now, etc. But then going to much more moderate type of NGOs like business, agriculture, water, education, health, etc. And we had these, there were 3 intensive workshops of these, and the same about the Palestinian. And then the Norwegian asked us to write an assessment, or to use the technical term, evaluation research. So I took the transcripts of all these evaluations, of all these workshops. And my conclusion was very gloomy. It has one positive aspect, and that is that those that were involved in these groups, on the Israeli and the Palestinian side, there is no doubt that there has been a real change in attitudes. And as has been recently told, I forgot the name of the author of this term, but there's a recent paper by Admirals from University, superordinate identity. Namely, all of us who were involved in this workshop developed a superordinate identity, in the sense that our identity as peaceniks, so to speak, subjugated or dominated all other identities, including our nationalistic ideologies, etc. So we became, in this respect, universal peace lovers people. But on the other hand, and this was the major drawback, there was no spillover effect. It remained in these circles, and we had no impact. And I think that one of the reasons is the composition of the groups and the definition. And you can see it. I mean, people started when in the mid-90s, I think, following the Oslo Agreement, and the Norwegian were indeed very generous about it, and there is no doubt about their intentions. But what happened since then? So I think that we have to switch somehow our model by not getting together the same group of people who are already converted to the idea of peace, more or less, and see how we can make a breakthrough to penetrate. Now, I don't know the larger public now. I know a little bit about the Palestinian society, but I won't speak about the Palestinian. I know that in Israel, for the last decade, or over the last decade, to use the Gramsci's term, we are in the right has the hegemony. both in the ideological, in the electoral, in the economic, in almost any dimension. So we are living against the stream. In the same way that 50 years ago the hegemony was in the left, in the Labour Party, in Mapai, for the last few days the hegemony is a clear rightist. I remember 10 to 15 years ago I wrote an article, I think there was a journal, Politica, and the title was On the Verge of a Rightist Hegemony, and with a question mark. Unfortunate, this came through. So I tell you, I can speak a lot in favor of what you have said and some things that I am against, but I'm feeling frustrated. I'm feeling frustrated that our work here is not felt, as I said, does not spill over effect. And I think that we have to reconceptualize maybe our theoretical approach. Danny, I'm speaking now.
I'm talking about you.
Okay, that's good. I'm saying maybe our theoretical approach to this, how to change the larger public, is wrong. That we shouldn't necessarily start from assumptions such as that the truth that are applicable to interpersonal small groups are necessarily applicable to more complex social systems. And there is the concept that I wrote a short article about it, and those of you interested, I can send it to you, about the concept of emergent levels properties, according to which every level in the hierarchy of existing entities, starting from physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, sociology, and so forth, is dependent on one hand on the constraint generated by the lower level, but it generates rules of its own. And we are not aware enough of the emergent level properties, and therefore we feel frustrated. So I will do anything that I can personally to join this endeavor, but I know that the chances of our success are very, very limited, and we need to reconceptualize our approach to bringing this.
Was introduced herself.
Not quite. Not afraid.
Politics in
question. Gary was asking questions.
אפרים, אתה רוצה לנהל את זה?
No, הנה.
אוקיי, אפרים.
Walid. Politics in the classroom. I'm totally against politics in the classroom because it's not very different from sexual harassment. It's not very different from
I did not get the first
politics in the classroom. I feel it's very similar to sexual harassment because if you talk to students from a point of authority and you preach your political convictions, which are a function of choice rather of an understanding, or not necessarily of understanding, you might harass students to appear as though they adopt your views. And I'm totally against this.
I am also against.
I beg your pardon?
I am also against. I don't talk about that.
Okay, so we don't have any quarrel here.
Outside it, also.
Good,
Yes,
good. My advantage is my specialty. And this is what I can profess when I open my mouth. I'm a specialist on an issue, and I'm being judged according to this, and for this reason I claim acceptance to my views. I don't accept that when you express objectivity, you ipso facto support the establishment. Not necessarily. It's not across the board. There are things, or there are issues in the establishment, Israeli establishment, Palestinian establishment, etc., that I support, that I fully support. There are aspects that I totally object to, and I specify my reaction according to each. Eddie, social responsibility, I think the best I can do is to express my knowledge to the Israeli public about what I know about the Arab culture, the Arab world, and this is my responsibility. I accept it fully, whether they like it or not. And here I think my responsibility is fully taken. I accept it, and I think it should be done by myself and by my colleagues. Last point is, in a way, it seems to me, Walid, that this is is the first meeting of a joint agenda for Palestinian researchers and Israeli researchers. And if this is the goal or the aim of this meeting, which I find very legitimate, then where are our partners? There are many Israelis here who are very willing to cooperate and to work together and to forge a common agenda on the issues of occupation, on the issues of two states and whatever. But okay, so let's start working.
Danny?
Yeah, I think that more or less, as I see it, we are in the agreement, and I think that there is a clear differentiation what we would consider making science, and as our responsibility towards the society as people who are academia people, and they have certain characteristics which differentiate them to some extent from laymen. And one of them will be knowledge. Also, not all of us in academia come with this knowledge. Some of them are physics, and one of them, what is named David, the guy that appears with us, the guy that has Israel Prize from Weizmann, and what is it? I can't remember. But he's very dedicated, doesn't come with this historical knowledge or sociological knowledge or psychological. But a few points that I want to make. So I think that we all be against mobilizing science. In other words, that we will be, as in some other countries with regard to content, what really differentiate us, especially social scientists and humanities, I think those are research questions. And this what differentiates. I think that almost when I talk with sociologists or psychologists, on the basis of the research question, I can identify immediately the position of the person. Either he will be absolutely uninterested in politics, or he be on the right side, or he be on the left side. And according to his interest, he will select the research question. Now, at the moment, I believe, we have really tons of research and knowledge about the conflict, about the dynamics of Israeli society, probably the same on the Palestinian side. I mean, I'm looking and reading, really hundreds of dissertations and theses that do not come out. But people really know a lot about what is going on in each society, the effect of the leaders, the effect of the media, the characteristic of the right, this characteristic of the leftist. I mean, a lot of. But what happened really is that we lost prestige and status in the Israeli public. Now, to be a professor, to be someone who is knowledgeable, and I think one of the indications I can say is the fact that I noticed that almost I don't see professors in any of the mass media as invited as experts. What we hear is politicians, maybe some activists, but correct me if I am right. I am listening in the morning to Reshet Bet, and always, sometimes I don't understand even. They discuss Iran. Why they would not bring an expert that will say? They discuss even Vatican. No expert. They will bring Bojis, they will bring Landau, they will bring people, but they don't bring experts. So this, I believe, is really a sign to our status in the media, but the media reflects very much the public needs, as we hear it in different studies. So the questions that we have at the moment is really how to transform, and some people already first accumulated knowledge to people, to decision makers. And I think this is a challenge. I give, in fact, a talk sometimes why the decision makers will never be interested in the research about what is going on and accumulated about they know better, and it runs against their views, against their values, against their ideology. And it's really, so look, you know, take a Missouri, and they still want to teach evolutionist theory, and at the same time there will be University of Missouri very close, and there will be scientists, and there is kind of no discussion. And I believe so this is the situation here. In my own view, when I look at the people, you know, we are all anchored in our views. I think that I compare it to religious people, maybe not in a negative sense, but you cannot really convert a Jew to Christian and the ultra-Orthodox to be secular. And I think that this is the situation at the moment. We have a knowledge, but we also have to acknowledge that we have values, and our values are different than the values of most of the population. We draw a lot from universal basis. They draw a lot of their values from particular arsenal, and even talking, I know I meet with well-educated people, not in the street, people that have PhDs and people who have, and I feel that we talk completely different levels. They draw, even if they accept the knowledge, they have, various assumptions about threat, and as you was noticed here, that we are working against wave. Look, yesterday, the speech, or yesterday and day before, of Netanyahu and Lieberman. Again and again, as I see it, they create needs by rhetoric, and then they satisfy the same needs with other rhetoric. And people accept you are not epistemic authority in this public.
Danny, my question is working with Palestinians lowering the current low status of Israeli academics?
I'm sorry?
Working with Palestinian academics and making it known, is it going to lower the current status of academics?
Quite the contrary, since they don't care about it.
It's worse, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant, it's worse.
Irrelevant or worse?
Irrelevant, which is worse than worse.
We are perceived as collaborators of Palestinians, as I say, lawyers. But, the stories that I'm asked, and I am not sure that on this level, but the story that I am asked very often by a typical Israeli who will tell me, okay, we know there is a peace camp here. I don't see voices of peace on the other side. So it's not a matter of academia that will say we collaborated on the research, whatever. What the Israelis want to see So there are a kind of peace now movement on the other side that is pressing the government, that wants to compromises, etc., etc. In the same way that there is a peace game on the other side. So the question is eventually, I believe, really more. With our characteristics that we have, with our knowledge that we have, the question is really how do we act, and this was really presented by Eli, as activists, also by Epi. What can we contribute as activists beyond our academic work?
Safrir?
I'm not sure I understood how we came to speak about the effectiveness of Israeli academia, because I was not sure this was what Walid and Eddie were talking about. Maybe I just did not understand. I thought we were speaking specifically about the possibilities of cooperation, even if it doesn't make us more or less effective. To be effective is really a matter of effective activism or use of the media. Most of us who are not media people are not more adept or proficient in doing it than any other organizer or politician. And in spite of the fact that in my field I think I do have some effect, but it might be compromised by being stamped as a leftist. I don't know, but that's my own problem. But I feel I had two questions just for my understanding. When you said we want to move from cooperation to academic freedom, did you really mean that you would like to have us more, that if I intend to collaborate with Palestinian colleagues, maybe that the most important help is in assuring their academic freedom, as in like working as a pressure group for academic freedom? Because I might be effective in this sense, although it will be sort of patronage. I just want to understand, I'll give an example and see how much I am off the point. Like when you're saying people cannot travel to the place to study, or they cannot get equal opportunity to do research or anything else. And I know that as part of the stronger party to conflict, I have more influence, even in the very specific possibility of calling the specific, I forgot how you call the mataki. I remember when I tried to bring Salim Tamali to speak with my students in school, it was clear that my power over his transport is much stronger. So is this the kind of thing, it might be very effective, like having responsibility over specific problems, like you do with physicists for human rights and so on. Is this kind of things you were speaking about, which is important, but I want to understand? Or the issue is trying to make joint research, which was speaking in the paper you sent us, and then the rest of what you were speaking was about the preconditions for joint research, like saying, okay, we'll decide together on the topics, and I have to make some kind of declaration about my stance towards the conflict, which might not be, it might be easy for me, I'm not sure it's wise as a precondition, but it's something I can live with. So I want to understand these two things. What is more important here?
Firstly, even to answer to Danny, to the two Danny's who say he's going to, working with the Palestinians, is going to lower the low prestige. I still ask myself, if you go to the media, an Israeli and Palestinian academic together to the media, would that be seen as there is a partner, and there is a reasonable partner? We are talking about academics that most likely are going to be what you call techniques. And they're going to look about any research, could be very scientific, they're going to go together. We didn't try it so much, so it may be worth seeing the good side of working together. I just say the negative side is to reaffirm that there is no partner. And that is, you agree with me, that if we cannot show that there is a partner, so Netanyahu can easily say there is no partner. But on the specifics, we want to try to provide real conditions for cooperation, which includes permits, includes searching a partner through a website that you may or may not know. But the moment they know you are a responsible academic, now, I don't see a big problem if you adhere as a, call it citizen, or as a, I call it social responsibility, it doesn't matter. If you adhere to a special phrase saying, I work with equals, and if they're not equals, my commitment is to make them equals. And then say, my project has to do with medieval Arab philosophy. If there is any pointer in the website, we'll look for it. And I think that there is a better condition that you find somebody that you don't know, maybe, because he knows that you may say it's an individual. I say social responsibility, doesn't matter. But they know who you are. And when PDS will say, don't work with the lie, we can make some lobby to tell me this. You are cutting yourself totally, and maybe some people will listen. That's what we're saying. But I say it only means to facilitate. Now, if you ask me, without this code of ethics, I call it code of ethics because the medical physicians have a code of ethics. I don't know what code of ethics is ours except academic freedom. That's what it is. And it is included there. Maybe it's be good for the Jews or not. That's another question. But it's not that it's not there as part of academic freedom in the international. So what I'm saying, we need some phrase that will feel people united as equals. And then we need to facilitate visas and things like that. And we also need to advertise it in a website. And we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe we did it too late. Maybe it's even counterproductive. In which, I'm not ignoring it, that we're so in bad situation that the fact that you work publicly with the Palestinians maybe being seen as a traitor rather than there is a partner.
We have only 5 minutes, so let Galia and then Rafi. Okay?
Somebody before me? No.
You.
No, there are a number of things. There are a number of reasons that academia professors have gone down in terms of influence and standing in the country. It has a lot to do with the globalization economy. And when the right wing first came to power with anti-intellectualism already in 77. I mean, there are many, many things. And it is we're fighting a battle, and it's an upward struggle. We're not going to make any difference, in my opinion, if we then abandon our activism because it's going to hurt us. It hurts us, it's going to hurt us more. But I really have some questions here because I'm not sure exactly what the objective is, because there is the matter of academic cooperation. It is cooperating with other academics, and Palestinian academics, on various topics. That's one thing. And there we have to maybe struggle with the BDS people. The other is activism. We're talking about, is that your idea, of trying to get together academics from both sides in order to be active politically, in order to push certain things, which is not the same thing as cooperating in research, necessarily. And the other is what was mentioned earlier about people to people, where there is something to be said for bringing particularly young academics together. And I think it does make a difference. It has made a difference in various months. But this is still another thing. And so I'm not clear exactly what the objective is. Nobody, in talking about social responsibility, nobody's talking about, quote, politicizing the classroom.
That's right.
What Danny said is exactly the point. I can be, quote, as objective. There's no such thing as objectivity, if you excuse me. I can bring all sides of an issue. But the issue that I choose to bring is my subjectivity. That's a subjectivity. It's the research question. My research question, or what issue I decide that we should discuss in class, is not going to be the same thing as somebody else. That's where it comes in, and that is my academic freedom. And it's not the same thing as indoctrination. It's not the same thing as the Soviet system of bringing only one ideological view. But I don't think anybody's talking about that. We're not talking about the classroom, and we're not even talking about politicizing research. But I do need to understand if we're talking about cooperation as academics working on a particular topic, an academic topic, scientific topic, or if we are talking about getting together, jointly working, appearing, writing, and so forth jointly, which is activism. That's not the same thing, but doing that as academics. So I'm just not sure. And I would definitely encourage, whether this is one of my objectives or not, I would definitely encourage getting young academics, doctoral students, postdocs, to communicate with each other, because I think that's a whole other thing. But God, I don't think that's part of what you're at. Anyway,
Rafi?
I'm going to have to leave shortly. I just wanted to put in the question.
Just a few small points. I think everybody agreed that today in Israel there's a strong impact of right-wing organization, attitude, etc. But I think this increases the importance of any activity that can work with trying to promote peace. Of course, while doing research as objective as possible. Second, I think the academia, though it is a small group, it is still much impact compared to its size, even in the current conditions. And the impact is very difficult to exactly measure it. Some of it can be latent, some of it can be short, medium term and long term, but still has an impact. And you asked whether showing people that there is a collaboration in research, what would be the impact. So I think it depends on whom. Some of right-wing people more, we might say they are traitors or something like this. Other people, maybe from more in the middle, might say yes, it's a sign that there are not so mobilized Palestinian researchers and they are willing. So it's kind of, I'm joining your point of view. So it depends on whom. And some people, you cannot get a positive impact from demonstrating such collaboration, whatever you will do. So.
Can I share comments? I want to say something that is related to, I think about the position of Israeli academician, and you mentioned already that Israeli academician are not as free, as assumed, etc. As free as...
No, he mentioned.
I
said occupation is the only restriction of our academic field. That's what I said.
Well, I just want to bring just a short point that people like Walid, he's in a much more precarious position than we are. And this I think we must understand, because with all the limits and constraints, our ability to stand vis-a-vis our government is, I wouldn't say completely unlimited, but it is probably as free as in any democracy that I know. And this is not.
I'd be a little bit careful, having gone through the whole thing with Ben Gurion University. I'd be a little bit careful.
Well, you know, even if I take into consideration, I say, first of all, I said almost. Second, Ben Gurion was partly the group that was responsible for what happened in Ben Gurion was a group that was led by Americans. Believe me, yeah. But that's not the point. I'm saying overall, our ability to go here and to shout and to say is much greater than in the Palestinian society, and therefore I think we should first of all appreciate, but also understand the difficulties that people like Walid are, because they are, as I said, take a lot of risk. We have also a lecturer in our department, Muhammad Darjani, and I know that his situation, even within his own university, Al-Quds, which is not the most radical of Palestinian universities, is problematic. But the question that I want to try, the question is how can we, because we all have certain problem of delegitimizing ourselves once we meet with each other. And this is particularly true with regard to the Palestinians, but also to some extent it is true with the Israeli. And I personally use different tactics somehow to So, for example, when I organize conference, I'm always making sure that there will be somebody from the right. Not necessarily the radical right, but so that they won't say, oh, here again you have those group of Pakistanis preaching to us. The question is, and this is why I wanted to speak before your turn, but it is, what can you do and how can we help to legitimate and to enhance your position within your own people?
אדי, אנחנו חייבים לסיים, אבל ממש לסיים.
Anyway, so Galia, we are living just, I have 2 points, one technical, very quick, for Galia, and the second is the conflict. Regarding the technical, look, we do not want to repeat our cooperation on this. Therefore, we decided to focus our project on the 3 objectives. Promoting academic freedom to Islam, promoting academic freedom to Islam, and promoting and also solving the restrictions that prevent academic cooperation in Muslims. This is what we thought to be the objective. So, yes.
You mean academic freedom versus normalization? Is that the idea? The freedom to work together or to meet, or do you
This is
mean
the third objective.
or to
The third objective, we want to develop a formula for academic cooperation between the 2 sides that deals with the restrictions and the problems and try to find solutions for that. This is the objective of our program. So this is for you. But now to the major issue that is there. No, we are not talking about politicizing. If I was got that way, this is not what I meant politicizing academia or pushing the academia towards something beyond working for fun and truth here. So this is not the aim of the discussion. The idea was we have to finish.
Yes, because the classroom is busy.
3 minutes.
So sorry, there is a lot of trying to say, but let me try to, because a lot of friends brought a lot of ideas, issues that need clarification, I feel. But in any way, very quickly, the idea we have, as Palestinians and Israelis, we have a long experience of cooperation between academics. Now, in the point that Palestine becomes a state in the UN, this is what I meant. I do not need politicizing, academics. We need some kind of re-evaluation, not in order to make a setback. We need an evaluation in order to go forward in a new basis. What is the new basis? Palestine now is becoming a state, recognized by the UN as a state, At the same time, Palestine on the ground is in the worst situation ever. So it is in this situation ever internationally, while it is in the worst situation ever in the ground. On the other hand, it is echoing in my mind what is said. Israel is the more vulnerable. I see that. I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. So this, how much our research agenda can meet these kinds of issues is one, and not only this. When we are talking about developing an agenda for academic cooperation in order to promote the 2-state solutions, the issue is not only political. It has to do with how we will develop the economy, how we will develop the economic relation between the 2 sides, how we will develop the environment, how we will solve the environmental issues. So which means that all the specialties will be invited to contribute to the process. How we develop the language of understanding in our 2 languages. This is your project. So all of this is part of the agenda. So this is what I meant in any way. So
Thank you very much.